So, whatever we have discussed and whatever the questions you have in your mind after discussing the natural resources, we will have a quick recap with the following presentation. Natural resources, when we think in mind, then the essential questions come in mind that how do you differentiate between renewable and non-renewable resources? So, why are natural resources important? See, as we discuss in our day to day life, we are totally dependent on natural resources or whatever the products or whatever the basic needs of our daily life. It is accompanied by natural resources which we get from nature. So, there's a need to understand that why the natural resources are important. The earth provides almost everything we need to survive through its atmosphere. Once from oceans and soil, we use Earth's natural resources to help us survive. A natural resource is any natural material that is used by humans or living things. And keep remember, whatever the natural resources we are obtaining, maximum natural resources we get from forest area. So here are few examples of natural resources. It include water, petroleum, minerals, forest, and animal. For if we consider these examples, so for every basic need of our day-to-day life, we need water. We need water for drinking, we need water for bathing, we need water for cleaning and cooking and all. If we consider petroleum, then for automobiles, for various industries, we need petrol. If we take example of minerals, then we have a wider application of minerals in our daily life. Forest. We depend on forest for food, for medicines, for clothing, for timber. A number of applications are dependent on forest. And of course, animals. We use animals for food. We use animals for transportation. And we need to maintain the animals for maintaining the biodiversity, of course. So, most natural resources are made into products. Very few natural resources are used in their natural state. So, we can conclude that whatever the natural resources, they can be the raw material for other industries. Very few natural resources we are using as it is. What are renewable resources? In simple terms, we can say the resources which can be renewed. A renewable resource is a natural resource that can be used used and replaced over a relatively short period of time. Although they can be replaced, we have often used them more quickly than they can be replaced. For example, water and trees. Over here, if you see the point that although they can be replaced, we have often used them more quickly than they can be replaced. So, no matter we can use these resources again and again, no matter they are renewable resource, but we human beings are even though using these resources in so faster manner that the replenishment of these resources is not that quick. So there should be a concept of sustainability development, or there should be a sustenance in between the production of these resources and the exhaustion of these resources. So here the examples are water and trees. Now, what are non-renewable resources? Not all of Earth's resources are renewable. A non-renewable resource is a natural resource that cannot be replaced, or that cannot be replaced only over thousands or million of years. So it's as simple to understand that once we use these resources, or once we exhaust these resources, the replenishment is not that faster and they cannot be replenishable. The earth only has a certain amount of non renewable resources at any given time. Example, oil, natural gas, and coal. Now, what are fossil fuels? Energy resources are resources that humans use to generate energy. Most of the energy we use comes from fossil fuels. A fossil fuel is a non renewable energy resource formed from the remains of plants and animals that lived long ago. Examples of fossil fuels include petroleum, coal, and natural gas. When these fossil fuels are burned, they produce energy. However, when these fossil fuels are burned, and because they are non renewable resources, they are gone. Once they are used up and gone, new supplies won't be available for thousands or millions of years. So, it is as simple to understand that once we exhaust these resources, once we completely use these resources, they never be available for the next generation in a very quick manner. Now, how is coal formed? Before the dinosaurs, many giant plants died in swamps. Over millions of years, the plants were buried under water and dirt. Heat and pressure turned the dead plants into coal. Now, how is oil and natural gas formed? Tiny sea plants and animals died and were buried on the ocean floor. Over time, they were covered by layers of silt and sand. Over millions of years, the remains were buried deeper and deeper. The enormous heat and pressure turned them into oil and gas. Today, we will drill down through layers of sand, silt, and rock to reach the rock formations that contain oil and gas deposits. Now, whenever we are using the natural resources, and as we already have categorized the resources into two categories, that renewable resources and the non-renewable resources. And from the terminology itself, we get the renewable resources can be renewed. But if they are used in a controlled manner, and non-renewable resources are the resources which cannot be renewed over a million of years. So, a concept comes in mind that is there any alternate for that? Or are there any resources which act as an alternative resources for these natural resources? Because as per the concept of sustainability development, we need to preserve the natural resources. So of course there is a need to find the alternative resources of energy. So most of our energy needs comes from the use of fossil fuels. But there are two main problems with fossil fuels. The first factor is availability is very limited, and obtaining and using fossil fuels of course harms the environment. Therefore, to continue to have energy but reduce pollution, we must find alternative energy sources. Like all things, each alternative energy sources has some pros and cons. So whenever we are thinking of any action, we must consider the pros and cons of that action. So nuclear energy, energy from fission or fusion of reactions. Solar energy, energy from the sun. Wind energy, energy from the wind. Hydroelectricity, energy from the flow of water. Biomass, energy from burning organic or living matter. Geothermal, energy from the earth. These energy sources are inexhaustible, meaning They are constant and will not run out. Now, why it is important to conserve our natural resources? Of course, we need to be careful on how we use our natural resources and use them only when it is necessary. So, there's a need of proper strategy and there is a need of proper management to use these resources in a conservative manner. From that, there's a concept comes that is conservation. Conservation is the preservation and careful management of environment and natural resources. And with that, there's a concept of 3R comes in mind. That is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Whatever you are using, just reduce the use of that. And even you though you are using, try to reuse that. And even you are reusing that, then try to recycle it. One way is to limit their uses. Example, turn off the faucet, replant plants. Recycling is the process by which used or discarded materials are treated for reuse purpose. Now here comes the standard check for the topics which we have covered, that what is the difference between renewable and non-renewable resources? What is an example of natural resource? What is an example of a renewable resource? Difference between how coal and oil are formed. What is an example of non-renewable resource? Are fossil fuels renewable or non-renewable? Explain. Give 3 examples of fossil fuels. Name 6 alternative sources which we are using.